Hello, my friend. Today is Friday, May 15th, 2026, and it has been quite the week for shares of Keel Infrastructure, as well as for the Incredible Seven, although I think for some of the companies in the Incredible Seven, their share price performance this past week left a bit to be desired, but we'll get into that in just a moment. So, Keel Infrastructure reported their earnings, so to speak, not really earnings, it's more of like an investor presentation this past Monday, May 11th. And the key thing that I think most investors were really kind of zooming in on was the question of, hey, is this company making progress as it relates to zoning and permits? And the answer is absolutely yes. Hey, is the company being fiscally responsible with the $500+ million of liquidity it has? Hey, from everything that we're hearing, the answer is a resounding yes. The company's being very disciplined in the management of its capital. So I think that is incredibly encouraging given the fact that, hey, if there's nothing to be said for any meaningful revenue coming in the rest of this year, next year, right, as the company attempts to really turn things into an HPC AI data center story, right, hey, you know, you're going to have some revenue that still kind of trickles in from the remnant Bitcoin mining business, but the good news is, hey, it was reiterated that, look, at the $500+ million in liquidity is going to carry the company forward. And I think probably most important of all, Mr. Ben Gagnon, CEO of Keel Infrastructure, stated unequivocally that 3 deals will be signed this year. Ben, that's something that will haunt us all if it doesn't quite come true. And I do acknowledge that, yes, there's always uncertainty. There's always an element of risk. Yeah, the emphatic nature with which that message was shared, I think definitely filled many of us in the investor base with a strong sense of confidence that things behind the scenes must be moving in the right direction, thereby allowing the company to really say what they're saying. Now, yes, it is true. We have heard statements in the past such as, hey, we're breaking ground next month, and then next month shows up and nothing's happening. And yes, that does create a sense of mistrust, may be too strong of a word, but certainly a, hey, verify first, maybe trust later kind of attitude, right? And so we're still going to kind of maintain that attitude, but with all of that said, I do sense that there is meaningful momentum, certainly at Moses Lake, at Sharon, and at Panther Creek, that I think legitimately gives us all a degree of confidence that this can get done this year. Okay, so shares of Keel Infrastructure were up over 14% for the week. In second place were our friends over at Hut 8. They were up about 7+% this past week. And then in third place, if I am not mistaken, was Cipher Digital, up nearly 4.5% for the week. Now, 2 other companies, if I'm not mistaken, also reported, dare I say, Q1 earnings, or for lack of a better way to phrase it, they had investor presentations, right? The first being CleanSpark, the other being Mara Holdings. So both CleanSpark and Mara had the same sort of situation where, because of Bitcoin mark-to-market rules, hey, that can be a blessing if the price of Bitcoin has gone up over the quarter. Suddenly that becomes earnings. But when it doesn't quite go up, it becomes losses. And so I think in the case of Mara, it might have been $1 billion, somewhat like $1 billion+ loss. Now, it's not a cash loss. It's really just more of a mark-to-market Bitcoin related loss. So it's not as bad as it sounds. I think in CleanSpark's case, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was maybe like a roughly $300-ish million, again, Bitcoin mark-to-market loss. The real, I think, focal point for investors in, be it Mara, be it in CleanSpark, be it really in any of the companies in the Incredible Seven, is the real focus on this pivot, right? This historic strategic pivot that all of these Bitcoin mining companies are in the process of making from Bitcoin mining to HPC AI data center infrastructure. And to that end, I will say, this acquisition by Mara Holdings of Long Ridge Energy, if I'm not mistaken, that's something I want to dig into a little bit more, because that is a really, really interesting thing. I can't help but point out that Stronghold Digital Mining was very early to the idea that, hey, it makes a lot of sense to own your own energy assets. Okay. At the time, the asset light model, whereby, hey, we just kind of spend money on Bitcoin mining machines and everything else is pretty much something that we'd rather just pay a fee to use. That was what got rewarded. And so shares of Stronghold, slowly evaporated and would sometimes come back. Whereas like Mara Holdings, I mean, wow, that stock really for a time, period of time there was just really, really like a rocket ship. I'm thinking particularly back in 2023. So, hey, for all of you who might be long-term Mara Holdings shareholders, I know it can be frustrating. I get where that frustration comes from. The same thing with CleanSpark, but I really do believe these companies are making a meaningful effort to diversify away from Bitcoin mining. And I think we're going to start to see those efforts pay off in the coming quarters. Okay, my friend, if you are brand new to these broadcasts, or perhaps you've been around for a while but have yet to subscribe to these channels, or my channel rather, go ahead and do so. That could be really cool. And then if you press the like button on this particular broadcast, that would be amazing as well. It just kind of helps us get the word out about Keel Infrastructure in particular, which of course is the one company that we focus on the most on this channel. So listen, it was a great week for Keel. It was a reasonable week for a number of other companies in the Incredible Seven, and for others, hey, it was a little bit of an off week, but you know what? That's what happens in markets sometimes. With all of that said, I do truly hope that you have a fantastic weekend. Let's stay positive, let's be great, and we will see each other again next Monday.